Hey there, Minnesota Vikings fans. You are listening to the Purple People podcast. You know who I am. I haven't been on for a while, but I have returned. My name is Kyle West, and I am accompanied by Adam Carlson on the other
Hey!
end of the tin can and string. And then our other co host, his name is also Kyle. Hello, and thank you for being with us.
Hello, hello. What's up, people? How are you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Twice the Kyle for your money. They have to love this.
Yeah.
You're welcome. This is a discounted rate.
I'd like to welcome everyone to episode number 108 of the Purple People podcast. This one is titled The Hateful 108. This is thanks to Mr. Kyle West, who informed me that this is an upcoming Quentin Tarantino movie.
The Hateful
Hey,
Eight. You should be excited for that one.
I have heard nothing about it, and I will probably still see it.
It's a
Same here.
western. It's a
Oh.
western. So yeah.
Uh, well, we'll see about that.
hmm
Let's jump right into the quick hits, because even though it's been a quiet time, we got actually a little bit to talk about. The first quick hit is one that I know is going to polarize a lot of the Minnesota Vikings community. Chris Cluey's got his lovers out there, he's got his haters, he's got the people that just don't care. But he is set to sue the Minnesota Vikings based on the 3 points that he brought up in his findings. Personally, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, and I don't know if any of the other guys here want to either. But if you want to check it out, I recommend you go take a look and see what his beef is.
I'm just tired of hearing about the guy. He's so full of himself and just don't care anymore.
I agree. I'm a military guy, as you guys probably figured that out by now, and it's kind of the same way for the NFL and any business. You know, you have a set of rules, and you got to abide by those rules. You can still be your own person, but I just remember him being very outspoken, tried to be kind of a pain in the butt for everybody, and now, even though he's unemployed, I guess he needs cash still, and he's looking for any way. So
Yeah.
I agree with you guys. We can go ahead and put a seal on that one for Chris Cluey.
All right, I mean, we will come back and we'll report a little bit more when new things arise, but for now, we'll just leave that be. On a happier note, we got to see a cool new video from new quarterback Teddy Bridgewater, who stood at one end of a basketball court, threw a football, and swished it right through the net on the other side. It was nice to see. Pretty cool.
Nice to have a quarterback who can be accurate and actually throw a ball deep. If Christian Ponder would have did that, it probably would have fallen about half court and out of bounds. So
Oh,
Oh man, I've missed the Christian Ponder jokes, man. Thank you for coming back.
no
That was
problem.
cool. I love showing a lot of my friends that had mixed reviews on it from other fans of other teams. But hey, I agree with you. Glad to see that he can throw a ball deep. He has some accuracy and put it where he wants to. But apparently, this is a signature thing. I went on the actual Instagram page where this was, and it says Teddy's signature full court shot. So if he's been doing this for a minute, he can pretty much put the ball where he wants. So you guys go ahead and get excited about that.
what I think's funny is that he's on a basketball court and he's still got a football in his hands. That to me just screams football player.
I like that. I like that you know what's in his hands. You know that it's a football. And there's some other rookie quarterbacks who are out in Las Vegas who we will not name that don't know what they're doing, but it's certainly not football.
Over the past two weeks or so, what has been the biggest story in sports?
LeBron James.
Where LeBron James was gonna land. Well, Adrian Peterson has jumped back on the Cleveland Cavaliers bandwagon after LeBron James makes his return to the Cavaliers. This is kind of an important thing because we're going to be talking about a little bit more about LeBron James in a little bit, so
hmm
kind of fun to mention.
It's AP. He can do whatever he wants.
That's true.
No kidding. I'm not going to argue with him.
I was going to save this one for last, but we'll do this one now. Adrian Peterson in Vegas has been given 25 to 1 odds to be the NFL MVP this year, which is pretty good odds considering all the players and the fact that he's a non-quarterback. He was listed as the top non-quarterback as far as odds to be the NFL MVP.
Damn right.
That is pretty decent considering all the folk on the internet that like to write the articles about how apparently he's going to be 30, and when you turn 30 in the NFL, you just completely forget to play and don't know what you're doing, and
Right.
the Vikings should trade him. So yeah, yeah, I like those odds.
We've been hearing about a lot of NFL players going and training with UFC people because of how you have to use your body in the UFC for agility and speed reasons. Well, another Minnesota Vikings player has taken to doing that. Young Anthony Barr, one of the guys that we should be excited about, a rookie. He's working with Chuck Liddell and Jay Glazer trying to get things going. As you probably already know, Brian Robinson does this on a regular basis.
Hmm.
And Robinson was third in the NFL last year of players at any position in pressures on the quarterback. So I think Barr might be doing the right thing when it comes to this.
Oh yeah, I believe Jared Allen used to do that as well. Correct?
I'm not 100%
I
sure.
I think he did. I think so.
I'm pretty sure I've read something about the same lines. That's really exciting though, because he's apparently going to be one of our speed guys, so it's only going to make him better. That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Hmm.
Former Vikings center Matt Burke was named the NFL Director of Football Development. Now, Matt Burke is a polarizing figure in the Vikings history, too, because of how he left the Vikings and how he found success with another team. But all in all, Matt Burke had a great career with the Vikings, and I wish him luck in his new position.
Big fan of Matt Burke. Smart guy. Puts his Harvard education to use. So I
Absolutely.
like to say, like I said, I'm a big fan of him. Always have been.
I'll be the third person on that. I'll keep it short. Good for you, Matt.
Nice. And my final quick hit is a sad one. It's the first Vikings suspension of the year.
Here we go.
4 games for PEDs, number 69, Spencer Neely.
Give you one guess who won't be making the team this year.
Sadly, he had a pretty good shot this year, too,
Hmm.
with how Zimmer likes to keep around his pass rushers. But when you get suspended for four games and you're pretty low on the depth chart as it is, that could be a kiss of death.
Hmm.
Hello, practice squad or cut. I'm sorry, bro. We can't have any room for that. I don't see Mike Zimmer being the guy for that stuff. So sorry, man.
And the fact that that is the worst that we've gotten so far this preseason is fantastic. Last year we dealt with arrests and suspensions and a whole bunch of other stuff to deal with one uh, player fighting for a position on a team to get a PED suspension.
Hmm.
I'll take it.
Yeah, there's a pretty bad statistic out there that I'm glad the Vikings are trying to work to erase, and I forget what it is off the top of my head, but it's something about for X amount of years the Vikings are like number 2 or 3 in the NFL for number of arrests or whatever. So
It was
yeah,
number 1 actually.
was it really?
Yeah, let's go ahead and change that. I heard it today. I was riding around and I was listening to Colin Cowherd, and they're talking about a team. I'm pretty sure it was the Ravens, but they average an arrest every so many weeks, and it wasn't a high number. But
Hmm.
it's good if that's our, like you said, if that's our only problem this whole entire offseason. We're doing pretty good compared to what we've had before.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
All right, so let's start our regular portion of the program here, and we'll talk about the wide receivers on the Vikings. A lot of people feel like the Vikings, even though they have some players to bring in, they feel like the wide receiver position is still lacking talent. So, of course, when a player becomes available, Vikings fans, a large majority of them, just start licking their chops and just daydreaming. This time it's about wide receiver Andre Johnson, who's a little bit older, but a very reliable wide receiver. The Houston Texans are having problems with him. He is not very pleased in his situation down there, and he has been asking for a trade. Vikings fans want this trade to happen, even though Andre Johnson has a humongous salary. And I am wondering what you guys think.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Okay, well, isn't this what we pay Greg Jennings for? Uh, Kind of the role of the older veteran wide receiver who can come in and mentor the young guns like Jarius Wright and Cordarrelle Patterson. I don't see any reason why we would want to bring in Andre Johnson. Draft picks are too important. I don't want to give any of them up. I don't want to send any players down there. I don't even want to send Christian Ponder down there because I don't view that as an area of need for the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think it's a fit, and I don't think it makes any sense for us to go for him.
Well, that was very well said. I am going to slightly counter it, but I agree with you totally.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that I think of is money. Draft picks, I like you said, draft picks are too important. That wasn't a factor for me, but Andre has been in the Pro Bowl numerous times. I'm looking at his stats right now. Last year was his 10th season, 12,600 plus yards. He's averaged over 60 touchdowns. He's a good receiver. And we have an emerging star and we have a veteran there. And we have good plug-in guys, like you said, Jarius Wright. But I'm thinking about another receiver position that we need to focus our money towards, and that is our tight end, Kyle Rudolph. You got to think, Andre Johnson is going to come in. He's going to want a lot of money. We have cap space, and we're going to have cap space next year, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We have a young, emerging, going into, not even in his prime yet, and we have North Turner. As much as I would love to add Andre Johnson for the now, I'm going to go ahead and say no. I know a lot of people probably don't like that, but we have the pieces. We just have to be patient.
Personally, I'm a huge fan of Andre Johnson. The guy has all the skills in the world that you want from a wide receiver. But my problem is if you bring him in and you're in a two wide receiver set, who do you put out there? Who is worth more? I mean, are you going to bench Greg Jennings for him? Are you going to bench Cordarrelle Patterson for him? If you're bringing him in just for depth, if you're going to bring in a player of his caliber for depth, then that is spending a lot of money and putting a lot of resources into a depth position that just could be focused on allocating the money or the draft picks elsewhere. And to me, there's too many young players on this team that deserve a chance. I love Rodney Smith. Big fan of that guy. Adam Thielen needs to step up. Jarius Wright, he's made some plays in the past, and he's only set to get bigger. And I'd hate to see any of these guys get bumped out because they want to bring in a veteran with 2 or 3 years left and just overpay him to play a role in an offense that isn't a focused role.
Yeah, and the salary cap point that Kyle brought up is a very valid point. I didn't even think of that. But, Kyle Rudolph is going to be poised to earn himself a really nice contract with Minnesota. He's a player that you want to lock up.
Absolutely.
And it really doesn't make sense financially to go out there and to spend the money for a receiver, an older receiver like that who's at the tail end of his career, when you do have the future to look out towards. So, yeah, that excellent point.
Very true. The Cleveland Browns are having a wide receiver problem of their own. After not spending a draft pick in the draft to get younger and faster, better wide receivers, they found out that Josh Gordon was going to be suspended pretty much indefinitely and probably for at least the duration of this season. Now, Josh Gordon exploded onto the scene last year and just had amazing numbers, but he seems to have a lot of trouble off the field. Now, when the supplemental draft was happening, Mr. Kyle West and I sat down and we talked a little bit about each of the guys that were going to go into the supplemental draft. And this alone, the off-the-field issues, was the main problem that we had with Josh Gordon, and why I considered that the Vikings couldn't take anything more than a 6th-round flyer on him, even though he had potential far higher. And the Browns were willing to gamble on that, and it ended up not paying off. Now, if the Vikings were in this situation, it would be a big pickle. What Vikings player do you think that if he was having these kind of off-field issues, what Vikings player do you think would hurt the offense the most to miss?
Well, if you have to go with offense, we would never, even though we've never had that problem with AP, it would be AP. Or let's take a young guy similar to Josh Gordon and say Cordarrelle Patterson. That would hurt us the most. Emerging star, receiving, returning, rushing. That's the person I think of. And cool little plug here, just to throw out the cool information. Josh Gordon had a great season last year. Who was his offensive coordinator? I'll leave you with that.
True.
I like that. I like that quite a bit. Obviously, AP is our offense. It runs through him. So yeah, if we were to lose him, that's a huge blow to the team. Otherwise, I would actually say I'm maybe going to go with Kyle Rudolph offensively because I think he's poised to have a really big year for us. And I think after you see the kind of production that we're expecting from him, you'll be able to look back at this and go, yeah, it really hurt not having him on the field. Defensively, at the moment, I don't know. We're really waiting for someone to kind of step up and be that guy on defense for the team. I don't know if we have that player yet, but
I'm going to go ahead and pick a player on offense that you guys haven't mentioned, and someone that probably is a little bit overlooked. And I'm going to pick the center, John Sullivan.
Oh, touche.
yeah.
I think Sullivan is probably, even though they've spent higher draft picks on both the offensive tackles, and they're working hard to instill some new guards, to me, John Sullivan is the best center in the NFL.
I thought maybe for a minute, Adam, you were going to go with Charlie Johnson.
I thought about it for a second, to be honest. No, I didn't. I kind of wish I did, though. That would have been pretty hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we talked about LeBron James going back to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and it brought up a good question that Mr. Kyle Smith brought up to us, and that is, if we could have one player back for the Minnesota Vikings that went to another team, which player would we want to come back?
You already know my answer, Adam.
Percy Harvin.
Not Percy Harvin. The real 84, as much as I love Cordarrelle Patterson, Randy Moss. I want to hear about none of this 2010 crap that was with a dumb coach that should have been fired, that did get fired, and Randy Moss was the first one to come out and say this guy's an idiot. So
He wouldn't feed that argument to his dog.
He was right, and the food probably did suck. How do we know? He was probably right on that one too. So yeah, come on, you give me Moss back back in Minnesota. Come on, I'll take that any day.
All right, what do you think, Mr. Kyle Smith?
I'm going to go a three-way tie here. I love your point, Kyle. That's awesome. We just lost Jared Allen, and as much as Jared, if you're listening, I think you're a traitor. You had a chance to win a ring, and you talked to Seattle and Denver, and you went to Chicago like a douche. Thank you. But I really wish he was still here. I mean, the numbers don't lie. And I'll plug in a little thing, too. Bucky Brooks did his top 5 defensive ends. He listed Jared Allen as number 1 right now. I don't agree with that, but I love the love that he got for it. But he made a good point that we don't really have an outstanding defense, especially last year. But number 1, defensively, Jared Allen. I'd love to have him back. And number 2 is a name we didn't see last year. We tried to get back, but I'm pretty sure you guys will agree with me. Mr. Antoine Winfield. God, did I love that guy. He would have been great to have. And number 3, even though he was a cancer for our locker room and he got into it with Frazier, I would love to have Cordarrelle Patterson on the left and Percy Harvin on the right. That makes me salivate thinking about it. But in that order, yes, I would go Jared Allen, Antoine Winfield, and Percy Harvin.
That would be absolutely scary.
Really quick, gotta mention John Randall on defense.
Oh, touche.
Him and a Mike Zimmer defense would just be really fun.
Yeah, without going back into history, taking only the modern players.
Yeah.
That could step into where they're at right now. You've almost got to pick either Jared Allen or Percy Harvin.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I think that the offense and the defense are ready to move on without them, they're both players that can make an impact and would help immediately. So,
what about Sidney Rice?
I would take him back for 1 year.
Yeah. Even if he can't quite stay healthy through all of it, that would be a good combination as well to have Cordarrelle on one side and Sidney on the other, with Jarius in the slot. That'd be really tough to defend.
If you could have Sidney as a 3 or a 4, there's nothing wrong with that.
It's funny you mentioned that because when I was trying to come up with some dead week, I asked my wife, and she was like, well, that's a good question. I would bring back, she loves Jared Allen, but the first person she mentioned was Sidney Rice. She was so angry we got rid of him. And well, you know what? I think we can plug him in there. That's funny you mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and the last thing we're going to talk about this week is the NFL.com Top 100 list. Now, they listed their 10 snubs. I don't have the list in front of me. I should have done that because I am ill-prepared.
I can give you the number 1. It's Matt Ryan, and I agreed with that. Even though Atlanta had a down year, he is still in my eyes, he is on the brink of being an elite quarterback. He's a very good franchise and starter player. but it was among the likes of Matt Ryan to start out the list. That's off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I did not watch the Top 100 show. I had some buddies tell me where some Minnesota Vikings players landed. I went and watched the little video on the NFL.com page, and I was good with that. But overall, I think that if Brian Robinson wasn't on the list, then that's a snub.
Mm-hmm.
Could agree with that.
Otherwise, if you're just going by last year's performance, I'm not sure a lot of players really deserve to be on the list. And if you're just going by last year's performance as well, Adrian Peterson was way too high.
I would agree. I had that argument with a lot of people. We had arguments about who's the best running back right now, and there are so many factors that go into that. And
Oh, yeah.
I'm always going to have a bias because I think AP is going to go down as the greatest running back ever. Would hate to see him go for us, but I agree. I think he's still top 10, but he was injured, and it's nothing compared to the year before when he almost broke the record. But we only had two players, AP and Jared Allen. I think they were both fitting. I think they were both at decent spots where they should have been. I really feel robbed for Cordarrelle Patterson, and my fight and argument for that is you weren't used. You can only be used as much as you use properly, and you can only play as well as you can when you're utilized properly. As we all know, being Vikings fans, he didn't come around as a receiver until the second half of the year. But
Right.
from the get-go, the second game, he was returning kicks for touchdowns, led the league in touchdown returns and yardage. And then combine his 4 receiving touchdowns with his 3 rushing touchdowns. He's an all-around weapon you just can't deny. And he doesn't – I'm not asking him to be in the top 50, but he could have rounded out the 80 through the 100 spot, in my opinion. That's who I feel like got snubbed from our team.
Well, you can definitely expect to see him on next year's list.
Without a doubt. I'm calling it now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How about you, Mr. West? Are there any Vikings that you feel that, other than Jared Allen and Adrian Peterson, that you think should have been on the list?
Honestly, like you said, guys, just based on last year's performance of the team, no, there wasn't really anyone that really stood out that did a whole heck of a lot that was worthy of it. Cordarrelle Patterson would be the guy that you can make maybe a case for being someplace on it. He did make the Pro Bowl. He made it over on special teams. But he wasn't, like Kyle said, he wasn't really given enough of an opportunity by the team to really lay that big of a stamp down on his season. It took 6 weeks for them to figure out that maybe Cordarrelle Patterson should be getting more reps on the field than Joe Webb. So maybe if we would have had like a better system in place where week 1 he could have came out and he could have been used to his fullest abilities, maybe. But we're not really playing the maybe game. We're playing what actually happened.
Right.
And I don't think that they gave him a large enough body of work.
There were 2 other players that I thought should have been considered for the top 100. As I always said, John Sullivan, amazing center, and a player that a lot of people are overlooking the progress that he made last year. Phil Lodeholt did an amazing job at right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good reference. Thanks.
And he's a guy that deserves the recognition for the job he did.
And if we can project forward to players that we think may potentially be on that list next year, I'm going to throw Harrison Smith out there.
If Harrison Smith can remain healthy, he should be a lock for being a part of that program.
He's going to be a stud this season. I firmly believe that Harrison will be a breakout star for the Minnesota Vikings. I really do.
He's probably my favorite player on our defense. Barring Mr. Barr having a great year, which, hey, I love some linebackers, but yeah. Mr. Deuce is he's a beast.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right, that's all I have for this week. Did you guys have anything else that you wanted to add?
Hang on, guys. We're almost there. Training camp starts next week.
That's true. We got one more show before training camp starts. And then we won't have to be talking as much about Josh Gordon or LeBron James, and we can actually be talking about Vikings football. Isn't that exciting?
It's very exciting. I am looking forward to training camp. I'm going to be up there again. I don't know the exact dates that I will be in Mankato as of yet, but I am looking forward to it. Encourage everyone to follow us on Twitter at Purple People Pod. I will be posting all kinds of photos and tweets and just absolutely going to kill my phone battery while I'm up there.
And if you haven't seen Mr. Kyle West's photography, as far as sports photography. It's some pretty good stuff. I recommend you check it out.
Well, I try my best to shoot over and around people while I am up there.
And on that note, I would like to thank Mr. Kyle West and congratulate him for rejoining us. And I would also like to thank Mr. Kyle Smith, who we have offered a somewhat, or if he wants, permanent, semi-permanent. Whenever he wants to be on the show, he's welcome to come back.
I told the guys I would love to be here every week. I will try my best. And thank you, by the way. Thank you guys for letting me give me that little offer. But thank you to the fans that sent us messages saying things we might be able to improve on. Thank you for doing it nicely and not being douches about it.
Absolutely.
We respect that, and we will keep that in mind. And we just want to give you guys a really, really good show. So thank you for that.
And I'll be honest, I had to take over some of the audio duties when Mr. Kyle West had to take his little break. And I am not, I'm okay technology-wise, but I'm not fantastic. So getting a lot of this figured out took me a little while, and I'm glad you guys stuck with us because I struggled.
On the other hand, I'm an audiophile, so I will sit here and be like, I'm going to tweak this and make this good.
So since you listened to this episode and it probably sounded pretty good, you can thank Mr. Kyle West for that one.
Hopefully it sounded decent.
All right, thanks again, everyone, for listening, and remember to stay classy, Minnesota.